All right. Okay then. On November 23rd, 2013, Kenneth Tucker, while driving with his friends, had an unfortunate event happen to him. He had bullets penetrate his body that ended up killing him. Not only was Kenneth Tucker the only victim, but throughout the United States, whether it be mass shootings in colleges or in schools or in clubs, millions of Americans are dying due to gun violence. Why is that? It's because gun violence is an issue that we must attack, not by controlling guns, but by finding a reform that will work for all, and not just those that are affected by guns. Young states that 1.4 million U.S. firearm deaths from 1968 to 2011, compared with the number of U.S. military deaths, which is 1.2 million, in every armed conflict from the Revolutionary War to the invasion of Iraq. That means that gun violence is killing millions of Americans. It's killing more Americans than all the wars that we have had combined since the Revolutionary War. And according to a February 13th article on Nation's Health, guns claim 30,000 lives every year, particularly young blacks and Hispanics. Why? Because there's so much violence between gangs and in the streets, and a lot of these young people don't have anywhere to go. So they turn to these gangs that teach them that to kill someone, you kill them using guns. A black youth had a 1 in 21 lifetime chance of becoming a homicide victim, a full 6 times more than white counterparts. That means that young black men and black men in general are 6 times more likely to be shot and killed through gun violence than a white man. We also have a failing gun control agenda. Young interviewed a gun control activist who held marches for gun control, who said that the same people who are talking about it won't do anything about it. These people that want gun control aren't doing anything to get it done, which is what Young is saying. None of the family members I spoke with raised the Second Amendment one way or the other. Almost all of them believed that guns were too readily available. None believed that there was anything that could be done about it, said Young after interviewing family members whose children were killed due to gun violence. These are family members that are seeing gun violence and are seeing it so rapidly that they feel that there's nothing that can be done to stop these guns and to stop this violence. Why do many feel like that? It's because Washington, D.C. is not helping the fight against gun violence. The issue here is not gun control, instead it is gun violence. The Orlando Massacre was the 998th mass shooting in the United States since a gunman walked into Sandy Hook Elementary School and killed 26 people and children on December 14, 2012, writes Richard Kim, who wrote an article for The Nation. That means that since 2012, it has been 4 years. In 4 years, the United States has amassed 998 mass shootings. Richard Kim also states that the common denominator in every single one of these incidents, as well as in more than 10,000 gun deaths that take place in the United States each year, is guns. So the issue is not controlling the guns, but it's the guns that are being used to kill these people and how readily available they are. Young interviewed an activist who said the reality of it is they're not going to do away with guns in this country. The fact is that they are so plentiful on the streets and people have them, it's ludicrous to think you can take guns out of people's home in this country. It ain't gonna happen. This activist isn't talking about controlling guns and taking guns out of those people that use it responsibly. He's saying that they're so plentiful on the streets of Chicago, of New York, of California, that there's nothing that they feel can be done to control this violence. And we need to learn from countries like Australia that there can be something done to end gun violence, and that's by controlling the guns that are accessible to people. An article written on September 16 by The Nation's Health states that Australian lawmakers banned rapid-fire long guns, and all 6 Australian states and 2 territories began a mandatory buyback of prohibited firearms. They found that while 13 fatal mass shootings occurred in Australia between 1979 and 1996, no fatal mass shootings have occurred since reform took effect. 20 years in Australia since that reform happened, there was 13 fatal shootings, compared to 998 in 4 years. That is a huge number. We have to learn something from countries like Australia. We need to invest in approaches that are preventative and that seek to build community instead of policies and practices that further exclude and isolate individuals from communities, says Jill McClay, who wrote an editorial for Colorado School of Medicine. I told you how guns kill 30,000 people a year. I also told you that gun violence is so rampant in this country that many feel that there can be done nothing to stop them, and how many feel that Washington, D.C. is doing nothing to help control the guns that are being put out there on the market for people to access so rapidly. I also told you how countries like Australia, since reforming their gun control acts, have seen diminishing mass shootings across this country. Kenneth Tucker wasn't the only young person taken from his family that November 23rd date. 9 other boys around the same area were shot to death that day. And their parents said, those parents that they interviewed said, I was hoping it wasn't my son, but if it is, then I knew why. It was because of gun violence. Gun violence is a real issue. We can't blame the guns, but we can stop people from getting their hands on guns they should not have. Because on any given day, any one of those victims could be a child. Gun violence is so rampant in this country. We have to reform not our Second Amendment, but we have to find a way to find positive legislation to stop guns from being so readily accessible to criminals and to people on the streets that on any given day can take your son or your daughter away from you. I'm not saying that gun control, that we have to get rid of the Second Amendment. No, instead, we have to figure out solutions on how to stop gun violence. And that is, one, by making sure that our Second Amendment is clear to all our citizens, but also by ensuring that the guns that are accessible to all citizens in the market aren't guns that can fatally kill someone, and guns that are accessible to criminals in this country. So if I can leave you with one thing, it's this. Gun control, we may never be able to find positive solutions for, but we need to for the next generation, not to control our Second Amendment and our rights, but to control the violence in the streets, to be like countries in Australia, like the country of Australia, who found a solution that everyone agreed with to end this violence on guns. Thank you.
Ahí está. 8 minutos.